The Practice Protocol with Paul Conant.
Okay, week one, lesson two. If you went through your first week, lesson one, you'll know that we kind of did the retrospect back into goals and things that maybe you failed at or maybe didn't achieve or push forward. I hope you went through and did it. If you didn't do it, don't do this video. Go right back, get into the first video and make sure you write all those details down of those lessons. Really important lesson to go through, especially for me. Tom Mears on the call with me still. Tom, this is this week we're getting into knowing your numbers. So there's your stuff when it comes to this, and you help me out a lot. You always know you have to know your numbers, but when you start putting KPIs together, and an example in KPI would be, how many fluoride treatments have you done? How many treatment plans have you've done this week, and how many were accepted? I mean, you start detailing these numbers out and tracking them, talk about them in your morning meetings, understanding them, from what you need to do. You're in business to pay the bills. You're not there just for the fun of it. You don't want just a job. Tom used to tell me that all the time. Paul, you just created a job for yourself. Congratulations. So yeah, Tom, tell us a little bit about that, about numbers.
Yeah, this is the critical piece, and it's never been more important than this year, obviously. Knowing your numbers is a key part of your business. You got to be really on top of your numbers. The businesses that are surviving, and like to say, you were in the survive mode, thrive mode, and now if you want to go to the grow mode, you got to know your numbers. You got to be on top of them. To Paul's point and his expertise, and which services do you provide are the most profitable, and are you marketing them? So that needs to be known. You don't want to be doing all this work for the stuff that isn't profitable. So knowing your numbers is a key thing in this, and that's where we're going to help you build those key numbers that are going to help you measure your performance. And some are daily, some are weekly, and some are monthly. So there's different levels of them. But you want to be able to say, if you weren't, I always like to say, if you're on the beach in Tahiti, you would know how your business is doing because all you had to do was look at the numbers. So we're going to help you build those numbers and know them and understand them. It's like, oh, I'm not an accountant, or well, that's okay. We're going to make it as simple and easy for you as possible. But we should have a good accountant at some point to help you for it, because once we start helping you make all this more money, right, we want to make sure you're getting the best tax advice there is. So having a good accountant is critical in this. But we're going to help you how to read them, how to understand them, and how to leverage your business and set your plan on how to increase, especially the profits.
That's right. Keep some of that money. You don't want to pay it all back to the government.
Yeah.
That could be a nightmare. So, but yeah, we'll get more into that. You know what? I will tell you this. Once you really go through this and understand it, and we talk about it, and we drill it into you, every Fortune 500 companies I've worked for in the past, they have hourly numbers. They have daily goals, and they know you should be able to walk into your office. At one point when I was in the office in Fairfield, I could walk in, take a quick look at the schedule, and know within a few $1,000s, what we were at for the month. And it was crazy because it just becomes second nature to you when you know your numbers. It just happens. So, especially if you're part of, in a morning meeting, you're having, and I say have your meetings, at least 2 times a day, because sometimes you have hygienists that come in at, 11 or noon, and they didn't see them. They weren't part of the morning meeting. That communication piece is so critical to the numbers too. If you're focusing on, let's say, fluoride, then you say, let's make sure we're offering fluoride to every patient. You want a way to put $50,000 to the bottom line for your year. You want to add money. Fluoride is a great way. You have to have a system and a process for it, but it's a way to increase your numbers. And I know some dentists or some people say, I don't believe in fluoride. Whatever you believe in. I don't know. If you want to give ozone to them, I don't know. Whatever it is in your dental office you want to offer, fine. But make it a precedent to track the numbers on it and grow it. So, Tom, this is all you. This is a really good slide presentation of how to break it down. It may seem confusion, but if you want to go through it with us.
Sure. Yeah, everybody always says they want more customers. They anticipate more revenue, and they want more profits. And that's all great, but there's a problem with that. Those 3 things are outputs. If you want more customers, you need more leads. And then when you get those leads, you need to convert them into customers. Once you get now you have your customers, how often do they come back and use your service? And how much did they spend when they're there? That's going to give you that's your formula for revenue, right? Your customers times how much they spend, how many times they come back is going to give you the formula for revenue. And then we're not just in revenue, we want to make profits. So we got to know what your profit margins are. So what we're going to do is teach you how in those 5 areas: lead generation, conversion rate, number of transactions, average dollar sale, and margins. We're going to teach you how to put small changes and strategies in each of those 5 areas, which is going to have a major impact on your bottom line. It's just math. A lot of people focus just on lead generation, and that's the riskiest, most expensive, and but how many people are coming to your dental practice now? How often do they come back? Are we asking them to come back? Do they know all the services and products that you provide as well? I think we're all guilty of that when someone goes somewhere else and said, "Oh, geez, I didn't know you did that." So shame on us and shame on you if you let that happen. So we're going to help you put marketing strategies in place. And this is where we're going to generate the cash flow in your business. Knowing your numbers is setting up the mastery level. Now we're into that. Here's the cash flow. And by making small changes in these areas, and we're going to show you how by making just a 10% increase in those 5 areas, how that's going to drop probably about 40 to 50% increase in your revenue, and somewhere about between 50 and 60 some percent increase in your profits. So this is a key area. I want you to start tracking your numbers this way. We're going to show you how to do that, and we're going to give you strategies. I have right here in front of me over 270, 280 strategies that we can implement into there. So I'm real excited. Hopefully you even get more excited. This may be the best thing you ever learned about your business and how to do this.
This is actually probably any business you walk into. If you could get them to understand this, it eliminates, once they get into it, it eliminates the shiny red object syndrome. It eliminates everything because now they're focused on the numbers and they're getting better at strategies, right? Business strategies, not just tactics, right? So we have the tactics that we're going to find. We'll get more into the strategy and tactics later on down the road, but this right here is the foundation for everything. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's so critical. When you start putting this together for a dental office, there's tons of things we could be doing. And there's more coming out in the future, especially with marketing and advertising. It's all going to change over the next few years. So we want to make sure that we help you, track the numbers, know what's working, what's not working, whether it's now the dentist or the dental owner, office manager may have all these numbers available to them. If you don't have all these numbers to you, try to be active with it. Try to know your particular department's numbers. Try to know your particular, your area of what you're doing. Bring those numbers to the table. How many patients you see, how many, you actually, and this is healthcare, but it's also a profit. It's a business of profit. You have to make money. I'm not saying, you're going to be offering things that they don't need. Obviously you have to believe in it. I use fluoride as an example, but if it's Invisalign, if it's dental implants, if someone needs dental implants and they're a candidate, great. Make sure you're looking at that, because just like Tom said, I can't tell you how many people through the years have come through our dental office and said to us, I want to have Invisalign. And we're like, yeah, sounds good. You're not a new patient. That sounds good. Let's make you a patient. And they're like, oh, I already have a dentist. I'm like, well, why didn't you ask your dentist? I don't think they do Invisalign. So then I look up the dentist and they do Invisalign. It's on the website. So it's somehow these people didn't know that they did it. And what we try to do is make sure we overwhelm them with great customer service so that they're like, they don't want to go back to the other office ever. So, those are all strategies that we implement. And they're like, wow, you guys treat me so nice. So it's okay to be the small fish in the big pond. But you also, sometimes you're going to be converting these people. So now you become the big fish as well. So so critical. It's going to lead to a lot of profitability in your company, knowing your numbers. Anything else you want to add on here, Tom?
No, I think it's once we get into the specifics, it'll show itself. So
okay. So how you put these numbers together, Tom will kind of go through them with you, is each one of these will kind of relate into your binder. So if you're on page 5 of your binder, you'll see what this all relates to. There's yearly, and then you can break them down into monthly by dividing it by 12. But Tom will go through it with you.
Yeah, and these, understanding your numbers, these are the basics of, the mastering your business is, you need to know what your sales, and again, it can be monthly, weekly, daily. When do you start when do you start making money during the day or the week? So knowing your sales, tracking that as often as possible, then knowing what your cost of goods sold are, which is similar to your variable cost. And what I say is that's a cost that wouldn't happen if you didn't have a sale. So if you're selling, if you're selling a product or what it costs you for that product would be the variable cost of goods sold. So we can help you define that, but be consistent with that. A variable cost is something you wouldn't have if you didn't have a sale. So that's going to give us our gross profit and our gross profit percentage. From there, you're going to have all your fixed expenses, your utilities, your office salaries, anything that has to do to set up the office. That's an expense that happens regardless of you having sales or not. So we need to make, and this is where these are all the numbers you need to know to learn how to do what your break even is. All right. So when your sales less your cost of goods are variable, that's going to tell you how much contributes to paying off your fixed expenses. And from there, we can drive the profits and how you're going to get the profit. So from here, by knowing these numbers, we can tell that for us to break even, we need X amount of dollars in sales. And if we want to make 100,000 profit, this is the kind of sales we need to know. So by setting your goals, your profit goals, that we can back up to it and tell us, what do we need to keep our overhead at? And that's what I'm doing with a lot of my clients right now is with the COVID is what happened to the overhead. Usually, and you're seeing people, downsizing their offices in certain industries. But we need to know what those expenses are, and we have to keep an eye on those because if all of a sudden no one's allowed to come back in your door again, what are you going to do? So knowing those numbers and how you're going to manage through that. And then also on the flip side is now when everything's open, how are we going to grow this business? Because your overhead shouldn't change, and then we just keep making more money and more contributes to the bottom line. So we're going to go through all these numbers, how to get them. If you're not looking at these right now, this is going to be, we want to get this stuff and understanding them right out of the bat. That's a critical piece to even get started. So
it's just not always fun to look at numbers because there's, a lot of more, sexier things in the office that you want to look at. You've got all these treatment plans and you have all these cool things with, like tarot machines and, I'm going to focus on that. And you kind of tend to, the numbers, they'll take care of themselves. And, for years, dental offices, they did, right? You hang your shingle and you saw your patients and everything kind of worked out. It's not like that. The future of where we're going between dental insurance issues, cutting into the profit margins, not changing what they reimburse, they deny, defer, delay insurance payments, taking insurances, getting out of insurances. There's a strategy there as well. So there's so many things you could be doing. And these are all the strategies. Like Tom said, there's tons of strategies we have for you and tactics that we could implement. But really understanding your numbers, you have to do it. So wherever you are on your list of things you need to do, put this at your top. Go through, and on page 5, we made the binder pretty self-explanatory of how you have to put your numbers in. If you don't have the answers or you're confused on it, or you're really just like, I'm not a numbers person, I just can't do it. Jump on the calls that we have. You'll see the calls are listed in the portal when they are. Ask the questions. And, I want you to get motivated to get a hold of these numbers and being passionate about them. So critical. Next on the slide, we have more understanding your numbers. This is more this year's projections. Tom, you may step through these as well.
Yeah, this is, we're in October. Now's the time to start projecting next year. I always tell everybody you should start working on next year's budget. Have it done by the end of October if you can. So what we're going to do is, know where you exactly are now, and then you can annualize it to the end of the year or forecast where the end of the year is. Now we can set up next year's budgets and goals, and then you can really look. You want to look at your net profit. Is that enough for you to make? Are you do you own a job or do you own a business? The business should be making profits after your salary. So. And how much do you want to make? Because then we can build a plan. But we we need to set the goal of how much money your business needs to make, and then we can fill out the rest. But how do we forecast going ahead? Do we look at our insurance? Do we look at our telephone bills? Fixed expenses that we can actually negotiate. And how can we become more efficient? How can we handle more patients with the same amount of people? So we want to forecast all those, and it runs out to the bottom that next year's forecast is what you would like, and what would you do with an extra $100,000? So there are the keys there. We're going to walk you through line by line on how to focus on these projections, but that's the key and then what are the action steps you're going to do to achieve these?
Yeah, I always tell people this too. If you want to know why a corner store stays a corner store and some corner stores become a Walmart, as an example, knowing your numbers is one of those reasons. The people that know their numbers then know how to take the revenue that they make or the profits that they make, then reinvest them in the particular areas. That's what we help you do. That's how we help you grow, how we help you sell your practices. Tom also is a business broker. I'll tell you, businesses that come to him with no plan like this are worth a lot less than the ones that come and have a plan in place. So critical. Would you kind of agree with that, Tom? Because I know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's what we look at is, what's the value of your business, and then how do you increase the value of that business? Where it's, the numbers is the number one thing. What's the profitability? That's going to determine it. But also, what are the upsides to it? Where can you increase and make leverage moves to that? So a lot of the businesses that come that want to sell their business, the value of the business isn't what they thought it to be. So we put strategies in place to get that to the level of where they want to do for when they want to sell it. So if you're thinking of selling in the next 5 years, now is a great time to put these projections in place so you can get the business to where it's it's the value that you want to sell it at. So I think a lot of them is the systems on how to get these numbers. That's the first part. Put systems in place that you get accurate numbers on a timely basis. They're the key things: accurate and timely. Otherwise, it's not much use to them.
Yeah, you want to have these dashboards and KPIs set up and understanding them. I mean, the last thing you want is you have a good practice. You want to retire in 5 to 10 years or whatever it is. You call in someone to put it together for you, and they're like, yeah, it's worth 30-40% less than what you thought. In some cases, 50% less. And you're like, oh my God, I mean, this is what I was banking on for retirement. The problem is someone could open up across the street from you, with a plan in place, open small, and start picking off clients. You need a lot of clients in an area to be successful. 1,000 to 1,500, you can be a very successful dentist and grow it small. If you have that 1,000 to 1,500, you give somebody a leg up, and then if you give them a system and process with it, hell, you've cut off 10 years out of their growth cycle. That's great. So now you're with a lot more. So critical. And I put these numbers together for you just so you have an idea. Write these numbers down in your notes section of your book. And that's just basically, these are kind of overall budgets we look at for offices to fall within. And this is kind of over, there's a bit of a range in between them. But really, if you're operating over these, if your staff salaries are over 30%, you might want to look at that. If they're under 25%, you might say, well, maybe you're not staffed enough. Maybe that could be the reason. And with lab fees, there's things you could, fix those with. But this gives you a good indication of an area you want to kind of stay within as an industry standard. And that helps. So I'm always adjusting those too if I see things that are changing in the marketplace. Marketing could be one thing. Costs for marketing, I can tell you're going to be going up in the next couple of years, only because of some of the things we're seeing with targeting. Right now, we can target people pretty well. A lot of that personal data is available through Facebook and Google. Well, that's all going away. So it's going to be a little bit harder to really target down, which means you may have a little bit of struggle hitting that person that you want to hit. So we'll talk more about that in the marketing section. Any questions on these? After you write them down, you can pause the slide, write them down, or you can just ask some questions on the call, our weekly call. Bring those to the table as well. But really, knowing your numbers, understanding these percentages, where you have to be, are so critical to the big picture. And that's what we're here for, to help you with. Now, that concludes lesson number 2, week number 1. So we'll get on to Lesson number 3 for you. So your first week will be done. Don't forget, jump on the calls, do the exercises. If you don't know the number, so you don't have access to the number, that could happen. Sometimes, the dentist is the only one that has access to it. Maybe, the office manager doesn't, or maybe an assistant is going through this. It doesn't matter. Hygienists, they don't have access. But try to know your department and try to be active with, say, hey, what are the percentage of inventory you need me to help with? Maybe we got to get better with tracking our inventory. Maybe, there's all methods to that. We're here to help with that. Ask the calls. Tom, any last things you want to add?
No, I think that's it. We're looking, keep it simple, and let's go, see you in the next section.
Perfect. We'll see you then.
The Practice Protocol with Paul Conant.